There comes a moment silent, brutal, liberating, when the soul whispers with the force of thunder, I can no longer carry what does not awaken me. And in that moment, something ancient breaks, something ancestral stirs. You begin to remember what the world tried to make you forget, that your life was never meant to be a museum of pain, a waiting room for validation, or a cage of niceties padded with quiet despair. This is the year of unlearning, the year of returning, the year of becoming. Not the becoming that appeases others, not the one that gains applause or maintains the illusion of harmony. I'm talking about the becoming that shatters illusions. That demands a shedding so deep you feel it in your bones. The becoming that strips you of roles, masks, and inherited guilt until only the fire remains. The fire you were born with. This is the year I outgrow everything that dulls my spirit. And if you're listening, it's your year too. You weren't made for shallow waters. And yet, how often have you kept your truth submerged to keep the peace? How often have you shrunk yourself quieter, smaller, softer, hoping they wouldn't leave, hoping they'd love the version of you that bled herself clean of power? But let me tell you something the world forgot to mention. Anything you have to dilute yourself for is already beneath your destiny. You weren't born to be palatable, you were born to be free. And freedom requires friction. The friction of honesty, the friction of walking away, the friction of letting go of hands that tremble at your growth. Because growth, real growth, isn't graceful. It doesn't look like a wellness retreat or a filtered sunrise. It looks like nights where your silence screams louder than words. It looks like mourning the people you still love, because the path you're on no longer has space for their denial. It looks like standing in a room full of people and realizing you're completely alone, not because you're unworthy of love, but because you finally stopped pretending. And that, my friend, is sacred. Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But no one talks about the cost. The cost of that privilege is everything that made you forget. The identities that earned you approval, the loyalties that earned you safety, the self-neglect that earned you temporary belonging. To become who you are, you must betray who you were trained to be. And betrayal in this context is holy. It is not an abandonment of self, but a reclamation, a rebellion against the lie that you must remain bound in order to be loved. So this is the year I burn the bridge to every version of me that stayed quiet to be chosen. The year I walk out of conversations that drain me, rooms that numb me, dynamics that insult my depth. I will no longer translate my spirit into a language that dishonors it. I will no longer call disconnection peace, just because it avoids conflict. I will no longer beg to be seen by eyes that have already made up their mind. Because the truth is, I was never meant to fit where I'm no longer called. And neither were you. Let's speak plainly. There are people, patterns, and paradigms that survive solely on your silence. Systems that depend on your self-abandonment. Relationships that only function when you suppress your knowing. Environments that applaud your dimness because it threatens no one. But what happens when you stop dimming? What happens when you stop playing the good soldier in someone else's war? What happens when you stop sacrificing your essence on the altar of acceptance? What happens is this. You disrupt, and in disrupting, you reclaim. You reclaim time, the hours lost in doubt, in obligation, in performing stability. You reclaim energy, the kind you scattered trying to keep everyone comfortable while your soul withered in the background. You reclaim truth, not the polite version, but the raw, inconvenient kind that sets you on fire and scares those who've built shrines to your past. This isn't the year you become better for them. This is the year you become you unapologetically. Not better, not perfect, real. And real doesn't always smile. Real doesn't always say yes. Real doesn't always show up when summoned. Real walks away. Real outgrows. Real evolves. And if that evolution costs you the proximity of those who only loved your dysfunction, so be it. There's a line. You felt it. That trembling line between who you were and who you're becoming. That edge where you know staying would kill something precious, but leaving terrifies the parts of you still loyal to survival. That's where the soul is reborn, not in comfort, not in logic, but in the raw audacity to say, I deserve more than this, more than over-explaining, more than emotional labor with no reciprocity, more than playing therapist while your own wounds fester in silence, more than being gaslit for wanting depth, more than being made to feel too much, too intense, too inconvenient for people addicted to mediocrity. You are not too much. You're just finally refusing to be less. So let them say you've changed. You have. Let them say you're distant. You are from everything that used to drain you. Let them say you've got an ego now. Maybe. But if protecting your energy, your time, your vision, your truth, if that's ego, then wear it like armor. The truth is, they never hated the real you. They hated that they could no longer control the edited version. Freedom, Jung taught us, is not found in fitting in, it's found in integration. Integrating the shadow, the rage, the grief, the guilt, the hunger, the holy chaos, the untamed spirit that no longer seeks permission. The version of you that doesn't just survive the fire becomes it. This year, I stop apologizing for evolving. I stop making sense to people who have not earned access to my soul. I stop negotiating with mediocrity disguised as comfort. I stop dressing my authenticity in camouflage so as not to offend. This year, I outgrow every mechanism of self-betrayal, not because I'm better than anyone else, but because I finally realized I was never meant to abandon myself to be loved. Love without freedom is possession. Success without peace is performance. Growth without grief is illusion. And I will not be possessed, performed, or pacified any longer. I have work to do, soul work, depth work, work that requires solitude, honesty, and the kind of boundaries that offend the entitled. I will not dim so others can shine. I will not shrink so others feel tall. I will not stay in places my spirit has already outgrown. Because this is the year I remember. I was not born to please. I was born to be. And to be truly, entirely, is the most terrifying, liberating act in a world addicted to the comfort of conformity. To be means you no longer rehearse your identity in mirrors made of other people's expectations. It means you walk into rooms no longer asking, will they like me? But instead wondering, do I even want to be here? That shift, subtle as a breath, is seismic. Because now, the compass isn't their approval, it's your alignment. And alignment demands sacrifice. You will lose people. You will lose versions of yourself that once felt safe. You will lose the illusion that if you're good enough, kind enough, selfless enough, they will love you the way you need. But you will gain something untouchable in return, your own damn soul. Do you understand how sacred that is? In a world that seduces you into performance, you choose presence. In a culture that rewards productivity, you choose peace. In a society that teaches you to monetize your pain, you choose meaning. And that choice, that refusal to turn your life into a commodity, is rebellion. Because here's the truth they don't tell you. You will never be fully free if your joy depends on someone else's permission. You will never be fully alive if your worth is tethered to being chosen by those who can't even choose themselves. And you will never be at peace if your identity is a collage of borrowed beliefs, hand-me-down values, and survival-based behaviors that no longer reflect your essence. So this is the year I grieve, not because I'm weak, but because grief is the proof that I've outgrown the cage. The grief of letting go of friendships rooted in trauma bonding. The grief of stepping away from family members who confuse control with love. The grief of finally seeing myself clearly, without the haze of old narratives distorting my reflection. This grief is not a sign that something's gone wrong. It's a sign that I'm healing, that I'm releasing, that I'm rising. Jung understood this intimately. He taught that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Most people don't hate their lives. They hate the silent agreements they've made with mediocrity, with safety, with roles assigned to them before they were old enough to choose. But this year, I rescind every silent contract. I break every unconscious vow. I dissolve every inherited role that never felt like mine. This is the year I stop playing savior. I stop fixing people who benefit from staying broken. I stop trying to be the bridge between chaos and calm. I stop pouring into empty cups hoping they'll one day remember to pour back. No, I'm done bleeding to prove I deserve love. I'm done translating my worth into acts of service for people who only know how to take. Instead, I will become the sanctuary I've always sought. The safe place I tried to build for others, I build it now for me. I will rest without guilt. I will laugh without restraint. I will say no without explanation. I will choose softness without shame. Because this spirit, this inner flame, is no longer available for discount. There's a reason your soul feels restless. It is not depression. It is not anxiety. It is not something to medicate away or silence with screens and schedules. It is a sacred agitation, the holy rebellion of your spirit, saying, I will no longer live as a ghost in my own life. So I listen. I listen to the quiet call to disconnect from what drains me, to leave the jobs that exploit me, to end the conversations that loop endlessly in cycles of nothingness, to refuse to stay emotionally available for those who are spiritually absent. I listen to the truth, even when it breaks my heart, because a broken heart heals, but a silent soul rots. This is not a gentle transformation. This is not aesthetic spirituality. This is not love and light. This is the kind of becoming that scorches earth, that destroys illusions, that fractures comfort so completely you have no choice but to build something real in its place. And real is uncomfortable. Real will make you question everything. It will isolate you from the crowd. It will disturb the people who only knew the version of you that made their egos feel safe. But real will also bring you home to yourself, to your purpose, to the quiet power that doesn't need to shout to be known. Let them misunderstand you. Let them call it a phase. Let them say you've changed. They're not wrong. You have changed. You've evolved. You've awakened. You've remembered. And that remembering is sacred. Because for the first time in years, maybe in your whole life, you are no longer sedating your spirit just to survive the day. No more autopilot, no more sleepwalking, no more pretending. From this moment forward, I choose consciousness. I choose alignment over attachment. I choose clarity over comfort. I choose integrity over image. I choose growth, even if it means growing alone. Because what I gain in solitude, I carry into every future I dare to build. And yes, there will be moments when the past calls you back, whispering with seductive familiarity, luring you with nostalgia, offering the false comfort of the known. But remember this, nostalgia is a liar. It dresses up dysfunction in memory's perfume. It tricks you into thinking the cage was a sanctuary. Do not go back. You are not meant to revisit what you've buried. You are not meant to repolish what was never real. You are not meant to resurrect dead things just to feel less alone. You are meant to rise, to rebuild, to reimagine a life that doesn't require your disappearance to function. One where your essence is not an inconvenience, but the foundation. One where your light is not negotiated, but revered. This is the year I stop running from my reflection. The year I look myself in the eyes and say, you were never too much. They were simply not enough to meet you where you are meant to go. And where you are meant to go is not somewhere they can follow. Not all of them. Not the ones who needed your silence more than your soul. Not the ones who mistook your loyalty for servitude, your kindness for compliance, your love for permission to keep you small. Let them stay behind in the chapters you've already outlived. Their roles in your story have ended. Stop rewriting the scene. The new chapter begins with the door closing and you not reaching back. There's a fierce kind of peace that comes when you stop dragging dead weight up the mountain with you. When you no longer negotiate your pace for people who never had the legs to climb. When you accept, finally, that not everyone you love is meant to go where your spirit is ascending. And that's not cruelty, that's clarity. Because the truth is, not everyone is ready to meet their own depth. And you are no longer willing to hide yours just to make them comfortable. You've tasted too much silence, sat too long with your shadow, held too many midnight conversations with the parts of yourself others deem too much. And now you know, anyone who cannot sit in the fire with you does not deserve the warmth of your flame. This is the year I stop seeking reflection in broken mirrors. I stop waiting for people to see me through their fog of projection. I stop asking the blind to validate my vision. Because this path, this one of raw, radical awakening, is not for the faint of heart. It is for those willing to be misunderstood, misread, mislabeled. It is for those willing to walk alone so they can finally walk in truth. Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And he was right, because self-acceptance is not just affirmations and mirror talk. It is war. A quiet, relentless war against every narrative that ever told you to hate your reflection, against the shame passed down through generations, against the voices in your head that sound like your parents, your exes, your culture telling you you're not enough unless you're pleasing, producing, perfect. But the war is ending now, because you are choosing to lay down their weapons and pick up your truth. And your truth is this: you are not here to be good, you are here to be whole. Wholeness includes the rage you buried, the grief you dismissed, the dreams you abandoned to fit into someone else's version of success. Wholeness is messy, unfiltered, non-linear. It does not fit into brand deals or social media bios. It is not always marketable, but it is sacred, and it is yours. This is the year I stop performing healing and actually heal. Not for aesthetic, not for applause, but for freedom, for sovereignty, for the sheer audacity of waking up each morning and knowing that I do not owe anyone a version of me that makes them feel safe. Let me be unsafe. Let me be too loud, too fierce, too wild, too knowing. Let me be the one they gossip about because my name tastes like truth in mouths full of denial. Let me be alone, if alone means no longer twisting myself into shapes I was never meant to hold. Because I would rather walk into the wilderness of my own becoming than die slowly in the comfort of their expectations. And that, right there, is the revolution. To choose the wilderness, to choose the path with no map, no guide, no guarantee, just a compass of your inner knowing. To trust that your spirit, unbound and untamed, knows the way. It always has. The world wants to sell you shortcuts, productivity, hacks, 5 steps to success. But becoming is not a process you can package. It is not a linear path you can predict. It is a dance with the unknown, a pilgrimage into the sacred center of your own being. And no one, not your mentors, not your therapists, not even your heroes can walk it for you. This is a year I stop outsourcing my wisdom. I stop asking everyone else what I should do, who I should be, how I should live, because I already know. I've always known. Buried beneath the noise, beneath the programming, beneath the survival, there has always been a voice. Quiet, steady, ancient, mine. And now I listen. Not to the algorithm, not to the crowd, not to the fear, but to the rhythm of my own becoming. The beat that says, you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to expand. So I expand. I expand beyond my old self-concept, beyond the roles I was praised for, beyond the identities that once earned me safety. I expand beyond the version of me that was easy to digest, easy to like, easy to forget, because I'm no longer here to be liked. I am here to be alive, fully, fiercely, finally. This is the year I remember that I am the altar, not the offering, that my life is the ceremony, and I do not need an audience to make it holy, that my becoming does not require consensus, only courage. Let them talk, let them misunderstand, let them go. I will not shrink to be understood by minds that fear freedom. I will not slow down to be followed by feet that fear fire. I will not quiet down to be loved by hearts that have never loved themselves. This is the year I outgrow every single thing that dulls my spirit. Not because I am ungrateful, but because I am finally faithful to the deepest parts of me. Because to be faithful to the deepest parts of me means I must betray the shallow contracts of who I used to be. To be loyal to my spirit means I will no longer negotiate with environments that insult it. This is not bitterness. This is not ego. This is clarity. This is sovereignty. This is the sacred rebellion of a soul remembering its own worth. This is the year I rise from every small version of myself I had to become in order to survive. And I will not apologize for the fire I had to become in the process. No more giving CPR to dead things. No more waiting for closure from people who never had the capacity to offer it. No more explaining, proving, begging, tolerating. No more. This is the year I reclaim the full bandwidth of my spirit, unfiltered, undiluted, and uninterested in fitting into cages decorated with polite conversations and surface-level smiles. This is the year I stop attending to wounds that were never mine to carry. This is the year I bury the guilt that came from being too alive for people who preferred me numb. This is the year I no longer attend performances, where love wears a mask and truth is the price of admission. This is the year I come home, not to a place, but to a self that doesn't need to be managed, manipulated, or made small to be worthy. I am done. Done apologizing for the fire, done shrinking for comfort, done outsourcing my truth, done staying quiet in rooms where my silence is the only thing being applauded. You feel it too, don't you? That pressure in your chest, it's not anxiety. It's your spirit trying to breathe through layers of who you're not anymore. That ache in your gut, that's not doubt. That's your soul screaming for expansion. That tightness in your throat, it's not hesitation. It's every word you've swallowed just to be loved, finally demanding to be spoken. So, speak. Let this be the year you say what you mean. Do what you feel. Live what you know. And if that makes people uncomfortable, let them be uncomfortable. If it makes you alone, let yourself be alone. If it burns down, everything falls, let it all burn. Because what remains after the fire is real. What survives the flames is your essence, your voice, your truth, your sovereignty. And once you've tasted that kind of liberation, no approval will ever be enough again. Let this be the year you rise so far out of the versions of you that kept others safe, they no longer recognize the shape of your presence. Let this be the year you carry yourself like a prayer that doesn't beg but declares. Let this be the year you realize you were never hard to love. You were just too awake for a world addicted to sleep. This is the year you stop waiting for the world to catch up to your soul. This is the year you leave behind the habits, the haunts, the hollow rituals of staying small. This is the year you stop explaining why you're growing. Stop making yourself digestible. Stop apologizing for your clarity. This is the year you set the table for your spirit and finally sit down at it alone, if you must, until those who can meet you there arrive. This is not the end. This is a becoming, and it's loud, it's messy, it's real, it's holy. and it's yours. This is the year you outgrow everything that dulls your spirit. Forever.